Welcome, everyone. Once again, we're opening up that sewing blab. Welcome to our 91st episode. Can you guys believe 91st episode? Oh my. Soon, you know what that means. We'll be at a milestone and you don't want to miss it. Again, I have to welcome all of you here. For those of you who are new, the lovely lady over there in the plaid is our host tonight. That is Dawn Pengelly from Duelling Designs. I am her co-host, Myra Rentmeester from Simple Inspiration. And that beautiful woman right there in the gray, we'll get to her in just a moment. And I'm sure most of you probably already know who she is. But with that said, I just want to let you all know we really appreciate you all stopping in to see us live. There are so many benefits to watching the live stream. Although you can watch us on the replay, both in Crowdcast and on YouTube, there are a lot of benefits of actually watching live, because then you can ask questions of like this beautiful guest we have right here and have her answer them right away. You can't do that on a replay. So before I start blabbing, which that's the title of the show, I'm going to pass it on over to Miss Dawn so she can introduce this lady and we stop wasting time. Dawn?
Yes, we are both entirely excited. I wore plaid because everyone knows all Canadians wear plaid, so it was my homage to our Canadian guests from Montreal. Although your real name isn't Heather Lou, it's your moniker maybe. Heather Lou from Closet Case Patterns, and I kept wanting to say Closet Case Files, but we'll ask about that later. But it's Closet Case Patterns.
Yeah.
And we seriously are thrilled to have you on the show. You have such an interesting story, but you also have, and I wrote it in one of the promos for the show, but there are binge-worthy sewing patterns. They're patterns that if you have one, some people, Myra, you might end up making a whole bunch of a certain type of jean or a certain shirt, because they're just so well made and the instructions are so amazing. You hear this all the time that you just can't help yourself. So yes, instead of Netflix having the word binge, we're now giving it to Closet Case Patterns as well. So she's not only a fantastic pattern maker, she's a great blogger. I love her stylish makes, those that are hers, as well as others like I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, the Kilo wrap dress. You rock that. You look gorgeous in that.
I'm blushing so hard right now. You guys have to stop.
And then there's also you also teach as well, also online and in person. So really another reason to visit Canada or wherever you might be. So yeah, we're just thrilled. Myra and I are we're the ones kind of blushing and fangirling on you. We're thrilled that you could be here tonight. Thank you for coming. Heather Lou.
Thank you so much, you guys. I am blushing terribly. But this is a fun format. I mean, I've done a few podcast interviews lately, but it's nice to see your beautiful faces while we're talking. So I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, cool. Yes. So the first question we normally ask, we're always very interested. We want to know like your superhero origin story, because sewing is a superpower. Come on. It's totally a superpower. It makes you feel fantastic. So what is your origin story? How did you get into sewing? What inspired you?
I always forget what year it really started. I mean, I sewed, throughout my childhood. I made Barbie clothes. I went through a weird phase in the 8th grade where I was taking old jeans and sewing strips. Like if they were too small, I would like sew a strip in between them and make them wider, and making weird hippie bags. But I never really sewed from a pattern. And then I think it was about 7 years ago, I just basically got fed up with fast fashion and was in a lot of debt, and just decided that for a year I was going to just thrift everything, or I was going to teach myself how to sew. And so I started the blog, Closet Case Files, at the time thinking it was just going to be like a personal style blog. I was going to somehow document this year of not buying new clothes. But then I got completely obsessed with sewing. So then within a month, it was just completely about sewing. And then I discovered the sewing community, which, as anybody knows, if they're sewing alone, I keep like looking at myself and getting distracted. I'm going to look at the camera. If you're sewing alone, it's one thing. But once you discover the community, it becomes, you're a lot more motivated. You're a lot more ambitious because you see what other people are making. So it kind of continued that way for about 2 years. And then I had a swimsuit idea that I wanted. It was like a vintage style swimsuit, and it was based on a designer swimsuit, and it was going to cost like $600. I was like, no, I'm going to teach myself how to draft. I'm going to make this. So I drafted the swimsuit. I posted it. A bunch of people were like, oh, you should make this a pattern. And this was at the time when, there were a few indie pattern designers, but there wasn't anything like it was now. And so there were a few people who had done it, and I had a bit of a model for it. But I thought it would just be a free pattern. And then I started working on it. It was like, there's no way this is going to be a free pattern. It's too much work. And I really ended up releasing it, and it was a pretty big hit, I think, for my standards. And so it encouraged me to do another one. And then once the second one did really well, I realized that it was probably a good idea to think of it more as a business instead of a side hustle. And then about a year after that, I quit my job and went full time. And so it's been since 2000. I released the first pattern in 2013, and then I think I've been full-time at it since 2014, 15. I don't know. It's been about 3 years that it's been full-time for me.
Wow. Nice. That's very, very nice. Now, I know you did mention, and if you said it a few moments ago, I apologize for redundancy, but you actually the design commercial spaces, is that correct?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that. I when all of this started, I was working as a commercial interior designer. So I had gone to design school in my 20s, and then back to school, and then started working for this interior design firm. And we mostly specialized in shopping centers, although we did a lot of different things. So part of my discovery of sewing was happening while I was designing malls, which was kind of a weird thing because I was going to meetings, these huge meetings with these like $1 million clients, and I had totally made my own clothes, and we were designing malls. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird transition, but I was a professional commercial interior designer for 5 years.
Okay, well, you answered my question because I was going to ask, how did you transition from that to that? Okay. Now, I know that everybody wants to get into a lot of the patterns, and I do too, because that's, oh my gosh, I have so many questions about your patterns. But so you're, when it comes to sewing apparel, you're mostly self-taught?
I'm entirely self-taught.
Wow. That's
completely impressive. We're so lucky.
I don't think it's that impressive. I think anybody could, I'm really a firm believer that anybody can do anything. I think I was lucky because I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. I was a single girl, and I spent every free moment sewing. So I think I got maybe good at it pretty quickly because I didn't have a lot of distractions. So I don't think there's anything that's special about my story, but I'm also like a very single-minded person. So like when I get into something, I get really, 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 really into it.
It's definitely like we're very fortunate in that we have a wide variety of people who come on the show, and a lot of them are self-taught. And you definitely figure out quite quickly that school isn't the end all to be all. It's more about the drive. It's more about, a passion that someone's following. And you can definitely see that with you. And so I think it's more not that you weren't self-taught impressive. It's just entirely impressive. This is something that, you didn't have the same starting point. It was a bit of a leg up, but you started there and you were like, this is something I want to do. I see that there's something missing, and there's not this kind of a bathing suit pattern. I need it. Lots of other women need it. I'm just going to make it. That it's not just your drive. It's the gumption that, hey, you know what? I could just do that. Because a lot of people can't make that jump. Can't go, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. And so I know you're saying, oh, it's not that impressive, but I would disagree. I think you're very impressive, and I think it's amazing.
Thank you, guys.
I agree. I agree with Dawn 100%, wholeheartedly. I agree with her because that's what you do is truly amazing. And it's leading into my next question about things like this familiar piece back here and so many others. But what inspires you to do some of the things you do with these patterns? Because people say so many different things inspire them. Where do you get the inspiration for such beautiful patterns that you create?
I mean, it comes from everywhere. I think a lot of my ideas just come honestly from seeing what people wear on the street. I really like people watching. I really like going into stores. Like I just had a 2-week vacation in New York and California. And I mean, when I was in New York, I didn't go to a single museum. I just went to Barney's and I walked in Soho for days. Like a normal human would be really bored after an hour. And I was like, nope, I got to go into one more store. Maybe I'm going to. So I really like seeing things in real life, seeing how things are constructed. And then most of the time, in almost every single pattern I've designed has resulted from a lack in my own wardrobe. So the Kelly anorak behind you, I wanted a kind of chic, like utilitarian jacket that, you know, at the time I had just gotten my dog Harry and he was a puppy, and I was going out for these long walks and I needed pockets. Like I always had like treats, and I was like, I'm not going to take my purse out. I always had stuff. So I was like, I need a really cool jacket that I can put all this stuff in, that we can maybe make it waterproof. So if it's raining, because I have to go outside every day no matter what, I'm going to be able to stay dry. So, you know, while maybe a lot of the details are inspired by stuff I'm seeing out in the world, the kind of core use of the pattern generally comes from something that I feel like I'm lacking in my own wardrobe.
Now that makes sense. Now I have got feedback. Can you guys hear feedback?
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if somebody had two windows open somewhere. That often happens if we have two of the same thing. Okay.
Okay.
Technology, you gotta love it.
True, so true. But oh my gosh, you know, some of these things, it makes total sense, because if, you know, you're designing something out of, you know, a need, I mean, what a better way? Because then you put it out there and look how many people have actually done that pattern. I mean, if you Google the Kelly anorak jacket, you're going to get hundreds of pictures of different versions of it. You know, it's a great jacket. This is my first, but it's not my last. When I made this one, I already had plans for the second one. And I have to tell you, I was just like the ginger jean. I was deathly afraid when I saw the directions. I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this. But then when you start reading it, you actually handhold people with your directions. I mean, you take them through every detail in your patterns to just basically walk them through the entire process. Because when I started this jacket and I saw the other ladies' jackets and I saw this, particularly this piece in here, these pieces in here, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that without messing it up. It was super easy following your directions.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. And we actually if anybody does want to make that pattern, for some reason, I mean, the way my brain works, I thought this is going to be my version of a simple jacket. And then when we started working on it, and so we just didn't really plan a sew along because I didn't really wrap my mind around how many steps there are. And then in the last year, we just get a lot of questions about it. So we ended up making so we have a full sew along for the entire thing. But yeah, the instructions for me are really, really important. And especially as we go along, because we get, you know, Alexis, my studio manager, deals with all of our customer service. So, and she really does a good job of, okay, well, this is like the second time this week that somebody's asked this particular question. So I'm very in tune with what trips people up. So as I feel like each pattern we release, they get even more exhaustive and handholding. And our Sasha trousers, the last one we did, some of my testers were like, you maybe there's too much information. Like maybe you're holding people's hands too much. But I just really like people to not be confused. I know how frustrating it is when you're sewing something and it just is not, even if sometimes it's not even the instructions, but sometimes it's just like you're trying to wrap your brain around what that particular wording means. So I really just try to avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, I would say there's a huge focus in our instructions of making sure things are clear. You should theoretically be able to assemble all of our patterns without sew-alongs, although they certainly help. So yeah, thank you. It's really nice feedback to hear because it is something that is a huge priority for me.
Well, I tell you, sorry. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
We always do that. There's a bit of a lag. I was just going to say that just like how with the big pattern companies, there was kind of like this, there's something missing, you know, there's not enough instructions. People get frustrated with them. It doesn't fit right. So I think that helped give birth to the space that indie pattern designers could then, fill that space. They're like, they saw the need, just like, you notice you don't have a bathing suit in your wardrobe, there's a hole. Well, there was a hole in the pattern making industry itself. And yes, definitely independent pattern companies seem to do this better. They have just much clearer instructions, and then things like sew-alongs and other things. So you definitely see why the rise of the indie pattern company, especially like Closet Case Patterns, who really does care about their customers being able to sew what they're made. It's not just, we want you to pay the $2.99 on special for the pattern at first. We want you to buy this and know that it's going to be something that you love to wear. So yeah, I imagine everyone loves that you give them those fabulous instructions. And Myra, I'm going to out you here. Myra really loves your ginger jean too. Myra, come on, show her how many you've made now. Come on, Myra.
Oh my word. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I'm getting excited. Wow. That's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have one pair cut out and ready to go. That'll be my 6th.
That's amazing. I mean, technically I have you beat, but I made like 8 pairs this year. So
well,
that's really impressive. That's really impressive. It's great when you have like a good pattern that you can count on, and a good basic thing you can wear it all the time. There she is.
Looking good, Myra.
Why, thank you. The best, if you scroll up, Dawn, to the one where I'm not showing the upper part of my body, the best thing about that is I'm very short-waisted. And like right here, right there, Dawn, I'm very short-waisted. And you give the two different, but the low rise hits me right at my waistline. So it fits me perfectly. There was only one thing I had to change on the pattern, but that's purely aesthetic for me. And that was the waistband to curve in a little bit more for me. That's
very common adjustment.
That's the only thing that I had to change on my pants once I selected the correct size, because when I first started making them, I selected the wrong size, and I did a muslin first. When I picked the correct size based on my measurements and changed that waistband, which took me about 5 minutes, I can just, without your instructions, I can put these together. That's how quickly.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I feel like once you get in a roll, I mean, obviously at this point I can sew a fly front with my eyes closed, but it's just a little bit of muscle memory. And once you've done it a few times, and it's a good reason where if there's a pattern that you like, regardless if it's my pattern or not, if there's a pattern that you like and it's a little bit more challenging, it's really good for your skills to make it a few times, because it will get to a point where you just don't need to refer to the instructions anymore. Like a shirt, for example, if I want to make an Archer shirt, I don't need to look at the instructions. I know how to do it because I've done it 5-6 times at this point. So it's just like a good bit of advice that if you like something, make a few of them. And, even if it's a year or two later, you'll remember.
Yes, exactly. And even sometimes, I glance over at the picture. If something just trips me up, I'll glance over the picture and know immediately what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, they're just that great. And like I said, by the end of the year, I may be just year 8. Because that's one thing that I have a hard time is purchasing jeans for myself that fit me unless I'm paying $200+. And
it's really difficult if you are short-waisted, or if you have a very pronounced curve between your waist and your hip, or if you have a bigger bum like me, or if you have a smaller bum. If you basically aren't, in this very narrow proportional body type, buying jeans is the worst. It's the worst experience ever. It's terrible, and you'll never have a pair that fit great. So having people realize that they can sew their own and that they don't have to get stuck in that changing room feeling bad about themselves is really great. I actually just hired a second person this month. She started this month. She's actually a friend of mine, so we've known each other for years. And we have a bachelor night every week because I love The Bachelor. Although I hate the current Bachelor. It's so boring. Can't believe Ari. Anyway, unrelated. So we were over and she said, "Oh, I have something to show you." And she's crafty. She knows how to sew, but she doesn't sew that much from patterns. And she'd made a pair of ginger jeans. And maybe she'd made a pair of Carolyn pajama pants or like a t-shirt. she hadn't really made that many garments, and she just made them. She made them in like 2 days. And they looked amazing. And so I felt really good because I was like, oh yeah, this is a good reminder that you don't have to be an advanced sewer to make them. You just have to have a little bit of patience.
That's
and good
absolutely
instructions.
correct. And thanks to you, I can get a great pair of fitting jeans anytime I want them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I do want to ask, I was going to ask one question, but I want to bring up there's another pattern when I was doing some little research on you that I saw, and I think I'm going to fall in love with it. I haven't made it yet, so I have to buy that pattern. But there's a white dress that you actually made. If I remember this correctly, you made it for your Barcelona trip.
Yeah.
And I believe that dress inspired the Cali dress. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I had drafted that myself, and then I don't
love it.
I don't normally make stuff for myself and then blog it and see if people like it. I don't think I don't remember. I think I might have asked people at the end of that post if they wanted it as a pattern, and the answer was unanimously yes. So we did end up releasing it as a pattern the next year, and it's one of our best sellers.
Yeah.
So it's just like a really simple, easy shirt dress, but with instead of having like a set-in sleeve, it's a kimono sleeve with a little cuff. And then we added, because we had a lot of requests for a longer sleeve for it, so then we did basically a pattern expansion, so you can purchase just the sleeve part with the cuff if you wanted to wear it basically in the wintertime.
Yeah, well, I'll be getting that one because when I saw you in that white, and I believe it's linen too, correct?
Yeah, it's a great linen too.
Oh my gosh, that is the perfect vacation dress.
Oh, ladies, I'm so sorry. My battery's about to die. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, Dawn, that dress is so perfect for vacation. When I saw
especially in linen, yes.
Oh yes, I have to have that dress. Seriously. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. But it's really,
she has a lovely sense of style. It's not frou-frou, over the top, or it's just classically stylish, gorgeous pieces. So if you haven't checked her out, definitely go to Closet Case Patterns and check out the patterns she has. They're very nice. So that's closetcasepatterns.com. She has the new Sasha trousers. She also has sew-alongs. Yes. She talks about her sewing classes. There's lots of great stuff to see on her website. And don't forget, if you have a question for her when she comes back, hopefully with the power cord, you can put your questions in the comments. Just put a question mark after it, and then a little pop-up will say, do you want this to go into the question section? You say yes. And I already see there's 2 questions there. And if you'd like to come on camera to ask her a question, even if you put it beside your question, on camera, and then you put your question, because we would love to have you come on and actually ask her the question yourself too. It's always more fun when you can talk to her yourself. Yes. Oh, she's getting close.
Yes, I do.
Almost here.
Okay, I'm all out of breath now. I'm so sorry.
It's quite okay.
No, I couldn't find it.
We were just talking about
Where is it?
All good stuff.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, fabulous.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Myra. We did it again. I'm very interested in, the gumption you showed starting your own pattern company, and what it takes. Because initially when you think, oh, I'm going to make a pattern, and you kind of hinted at it earlier, you're like, oh yeah, I'll just make this free. I'll just, slap this up. And then you're like, whoa, it's a lot more work. If maybe you could describe, like, for each pattern, what some of the things are that you have to do, so people get a full, because sometimes people would be like, how comes that's like that price? I don't understand. But there is a lot that goes into it. So it'd be very interesting to hear from your point of view what goes into a pattern.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if my dog's barking. I would say it's about 3 full months of work from start to finish.
Wow.
So it starts with a sketch, inspiration, making pin board, all that kind of thing. Up until recently, I drafted everything myself, but I actually just hired a pattern drafter this year. Her name's Celine. She just graduated from fashion school, and she's in Montreal, so we work really closely together. So I have my set of blocks, and she'll come over. We'll have a meeting, talk about everything, proportion, etc. And then she will manually draft the pattern and make a muslin. And then we take the muslin, we put it on. I have a special industry dress form that is my exact size 10. So I can always make sure that the measurements the proportions and everything are correct. And then based on that, we might go back and forth a few times, like the pattern we're working on right now. I think we did 3 rounds of drafting and then modifying the muslin. Then it gets sent to my grader, who digitizes it. So then she sends it back to me just as like an outline of that file. And then so that's the stage we're at right now. It's just been digitized. So now it's in my hands. I am going to go over every single line, make sure every notch, everything lines up perfectly. Make sure all the facings line up. And that's like a couple of days of work sometimes just to make sure all the pieces fit together. Then we'll sew up. If I'll make any changes that need to be made, because I still really like to have my hands, even if Celine is doing maybe the first round of work, I really like to make sure that everything gets lined up and is perfect before we go to the next stage. So we're about to make another final muslin, and then that gets fit on my sample model. So I have a friend who's very close to my size 10. So she tries on everything before everything gets graded. So then it gets sent back to the grader once everything's tested and making sure everything lines up. So then we have a grading standard. So it gets graded into each size. In the meantime, we'll start working on the instructions. So between Alexis and I, again, I used to do everything myself, but my studio manager, Alexis, is amazing. So between the two of us, we start working on the instructions. That might be doing some research about construction methods, might be doing a lot of tests to see what kind of seam finishes we want to use. And between the two of us, we basically write out all of the instructions in rough and then sketch mostly by hand, the things that need to get drawn in Illustrator. And then I go into Illustrator and in Illustrator digitally draw all of our illustrations. And then we start putting everything together. So we start fine-tuning the writing. So we don't have a formal style guide, but there's a very specific way I like to word things and try to be very consistent from one pattern to another. So then that might take, 2 weeks to just get the instructions written, get everything lined up. It comes back from the grader and it's just raw lines. It's not formatted at all. So then I have to go back through it and make sure everything lines up again so that the size 20, notches are going to match up just as perfectly as they do for the size 0. So that's another few days of work just making sure that's correct. And then that gets formatted and stylized with all of our line weights and titling, everything. And then that gets put into, people are probably falling asleep.
No.
And then that gets formatted into like a copy shop file, a print at home file, and then that gets sent to our testers. And so we generally give them about 2 weeks. They get back to us with their feedback. We change anything that needs to be changed in the instructions. More often than not, there are adjustments that have to be made to the original pattern. So depending on how big the change is, we might have to go back to testing, although thankfully that hasn't happened too often. Then I'm actually getting to a point where I think I might hire a technical editor just to go everything one last time, because once it goes to the printer, we're ordering thousands of copies, and it's really horrible to realize that there was a typo, especially when they're critical typos, and then you have to put like a little leaflet in the pattern explaining what the mistake was. So I think we'll probably start hiring a technical editor just to make sure everything is perfect again. And then of course it gets formatted twice. So it gets formatted for the copy shop or for our printer to be printed. And then it gets printed or it gets formatted for digital use. So then once that's kind of on its way to the printer, then we start making final samples. And I'll do model casting, and then we do the photo shoot, and I'll photograph everything. Then all the photos got to get edited, and then there's all of the marketing plan and the copy editing. There's just it's a lot of work.
And you do that did you say 2 months?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 to 4 months, depending on whether or not we have other stuff going on. So I am at the beginning of this right now. I'm not at the beginning. I mean, the pattern's basically drafted. I'm hoping that we're going to go to testing by mid-March. So we basically have 6 weeks to get most of that stuff done. And I think we'll be able to do. We have to do it because I have a launch date in mind. I want to launch the next pattern mid-April. So yeah, it's a lot of work. I have a very very complicated Excel sheet that lets me keep track of every task and make sure everything's getting done in a timely manner.
Wow.
Yeah, and you can see there's a lot of work and value that goes into the patterns.
Sorry. He's being the worst guard dog ever.
here's the strange voices.
He's gonna lick them. He's gonna lick them when the burglar comes in.
That's too funny. That's funny. Now, how do you get your testers? Do you have testers that you normally use?
So yeah, maybe once a year I might do a call for testers and add a few, but I have maybe the same 20 people that have been testing for me for a year or two. And it's kind of nice to be consistent because I know they have a wide variety of bodies. And it's kind of nice to see the pattern on, a diverse but consistent group of people. But yeah, I think we might do a new testing round because, sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, you guys are doing this for me like 3-4 times a year. It's a lot of work. It's voluntary, of course. Yes. It's utterly voluntary, but I might end up doing a testing call.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. And hit.
Yeah. I knew what you were thinking, Myra.
Of course. Now, usually the way I add this question is there any aspect of sewing that you find challenging? But I just want to say to you, is there any aspect of creating your patterns other than the sheer amount of time that's most challenging for you?
I think, there's that graph of the creative process where you're like, I have a great idea. This is great. This is great. This is not good. This is horrible. And nobody's going to like it. This is garbage. I'm an idiot. Like, what am I doing with my life? I'm a failure. And then like, oh, this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe this is going to be okay. This is pretty good. Wait a minute. This is great. So the part I always struggle with is the middle part where especially when just at the stage we're at right now where everything's being sewn in muslin, like, boring muslin fabric. And it's kind of hard to visualize the idea. And I'm wondering too, I have a growing team. We have a studio now that just stakes are a lot higher for me. I can't really have a dud. Can't have a pattern that isn't selling. I have salaries to pay. So that's always stressful, is just wondering whether or not a particular pattern is going to do well. But I have found generally, I've been pretty lucky, even patterns maybe that don't do so well at the beginning tend to do well over time because our customers, the sewing community loves using hashtags. So if people have a good experience with something and they either blog about it or they post about it on Instagram, when you go to check a year later, maybe there's a few hundred posts using that hashtag. And then I find that a lot of patterns tend to have like a steady, either up or just like a steady growth over time. So we haven't really had any real duds yet, which is good. Fingers crossed that I don't ever, but I'm sure I will. And then, the reality is that I've heard it said that you might have one great product that kind of pays for the other ones that don't sell as well. And that's just kind of how it works.
Do you have one of those right now?
I'm trying to think. Well, I know when we released our ebony tee, because it's just a simple knit tee.
Ebony tee?
Yeah, it's like a drapey t-shirt and tunic dress that we released last January. Because it's not like a sexy pattern, it wasn't like when we had this insane launch day, but I noticed, 3-4 months later, Alexis told me, she's like, we have to reprint. We were like selling out. And I didn't quite realize that they'd been selling very steadily over the course of the couple months rather than being this big explosion all at once. So that would be an example of one of those.
Well, see, then you have people, oh yeah. Actually, it's really cute.
I remember the Fold line talking about how much they liked that as soon as it came out as well. Yeah.
I'm wearing one right now.
Oh, you are?
There you go.
It's my favorite thing to wear in the winter because it's, I don't know what it is about the winter. All I want to wear is leggings. Like I wear a lot of jeans too, but I would say half the time I'm either in ginger jeans or leggings. And it's like the perfect thing to wear with leggings because it covers up your butt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have one on at least once or twice a week.
Yeah, sometimes, and I could be one of those people too. Sometimes when you have patterns out there like that, especially with the indie patterns, if you're not really staying on top of, the hashtags, because Heather, I'm a bad person when it comes to Instagram. I have admitted that, and I'm working on it. Seriously, I am working on it this year. And the hashtag is something that's huge that would help you be a part of all of that. And so people like me, if it wasn't for someone in pattern review, your pattern's exploding, I might not otherwise see it because I wasn't in tune to the hashtag thing.
On the other hand, I have no idea what's going on in pattern review. So it's, I think you kind of pick your platform, I think, a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And, we all have a limited amount of time, and you're going to choose the place that you like being the most. I know how great the forums are in pattern review. I end up there all the time. But, if I have an hour, I'm going to probably end up, on Instagram. So
and it's
okay. And you're not a bad person.
And me too. I'm in Facebook more than I am anything, but I'm moving over to Instagram this year. So I just think that sometimes we miss out on some of the great indie patterns because of, our processes and what we're doing. Because I tell you, if I had known about those ginger jeans a long time ago, I could have saved myself a heck of a lot of money. Wow. Oh my gosh. So have you ever made anything for yourself that you just said, like you did about the design and the pattern? What the heck was I thinking? You made it for yourself.
I think most of those I made in the beginning, like now looking back, that I made when I first started sewing, because I call it, when you first start really getting into sewing, I call it your party dress period.
Oh yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna make crazy party dresses, and I'm just gonna be fabulous and wear this like 1950s cocktail dress, and then you wear it once, and then you never wear it again, and then it just sits in your closet, and your taste change. So I definitely have a lot of crazy dresses that I made that I wouldn't change a single thing about it. Even every garment you make, even if it's not a success, taught you something.
Yes.
But lately, I don't think it's happened so much lately. My sense of personal style has become very refined. Mm-hmm. And I know now if I'm going to like something or I'm not going to like it. I know how to pick fabrics. I know how to pick, I know how to make things fit. So it's infrequent, I would say, that I make things that really don't work out. I'm just trying to think if I have any like works in progress that I started. No, nothing's really coming to mind.
Okay.
That's not like a humble brag.
Go on.
I know. What has been your absolute favorite project of all time?
That's a really good question. I think it's still probably one of my favorite, let's say one of my favorite things is this silk dress. It's actually not an indie pattern. It was a Vogue pattern. And it was this green silk dress. I made it maybe 3 years ago. And it's really special because the silk was hand painted by a friend of mine, Sally O, who also sewed. And she was my first really good friend that I met sewing through like her sewing blog. And we just started communicating. We ended up going on a trip to New York together. We became really close. And she's an artist, and she hand painted this silk for me. And when it arrived, I was like, what? Like, there's a stranger in Texas who painted like 4 yards of silk for me and sent it to me in the mail. Like, what? This is my life. And I made this dress, and it's a beautiful dress. I've only worn it a handful of times. It's so precious that I'm always nervous something's going to happen to it. Mm-hmm. But I think if there was like a fire, I would grab it, because it's not just the dress that really represents not only my friendship with Sally in particular, but my relationship with the sewing community. I've been really lucky because I've gotten to travel a lot to teach, and because I like to travel a lot for fun. I've really met like a ton of sewing people. My boyfriend teases me all the time because we were just in LA. I was like, babe, I might need a day. Maybe 2 days. Yeah, I'm going to need 3 days. I got to see my sewing friends. And he was like, you have 3 days of activities with like sewing friends you've never met before. And I was like, yeah, sorry. So, I just, everywhere I go now, I get to meet really wonderful people through sewing. So I think it just really represents the community for me.
Wow, that's awesome. The sewing community is a wonderful community to be a part of. And all of those people out there who are saying sewing is a dying art, they just don't know.
It's not true.
It's
not true. It hasn't been a dying art for a couple of years. And I think it's just, it's growing and growing and growing.
I think that's part of the reason why I asked, what goes into making a pattern was I have a similar kind of idea that you do, that, how fast fashion can eat away at our values of, like, oh, those jeans, you just toss them away if they don't fit, if they get a mark, whatever. You don't value what you have. And that includes when you sew and the fabrics you get. And when I was researching you and listening to some of your podcasts and things too, you do talk about how the capitalism, it kind of erodes your sense of the things that you make yourself, and fast fashion, it eats away essentially at that kind of value. So it's definitely interesting, and that's part of the reason why I asked that question. And I can see that some of the things you've written for Seamwork as well, you really think about where does the fabric come from. And do you do that as well when you sew up garments for your site? Do you think about, is this from Fabric Land, or is this from here? Is this from there? Is it from here? Does it matter where they come from and how it's portrayed?
I mean, it does, and I definitely make an effort to get sustainable fabrics where I can. But of course, there is there's a cost element, because sustainable fabrics tend to be a little bit more. You obviously don't have the selection that you do if you just go into a regular fabric store. Yep. And also, most fabric stores are actually, like Fabricville, for example, unless they're dealing with one of their lines of fabric. Or maybe I shouldn't speak about, what's the big, it's Joann's. Is it Joann's in the US? The big fabric. So in Canada, our kind of big box fabric store is Fabricville. And so they might have some regular, so it's called regular goods. So it might be stuff that they reorder all the time. But a lot of it is recycled from the garment industry. So actually, Ali at IndieSew just wrote a really great piece about the jobber fabric industry and why IndieSew releases these fabric collections, and why she consciously uses jobber fabric, because it's essentially recycled fabric from the garment industry. Mm-hmm. So that, to some, like when I go to see my wholesaler who's a jobber, and all, like 90% of the fabric he has is recycled. It's leftovers from fast fashion. So I never feel guilty about purchasing that, because otherwise it's just destined for a landfill. But even if you're buying brand new fabric that was manufactured specifically for garment manufacturing, we can only do so much, right? At the very least, we've removed, by sewing your own clothes, you're removing yourself from the manufacturing part of it, which can be very exploitative depending on what company you're buying from. I think that in itself is like a really great contribution. And more than that, I think that there's like almost a spiritual component to sewing. There's like a sense of mindfulness. There's a sense of connection to this thing that you're making. And so if you can add to that by making sustainable choices where you can, great. But otherwise, if it makes you feel good, that's really the most important thing.
Yeah, true.
And also, I think to be mindful in your sewing practice and not to mindlessly make tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff just to make it, unless there's a reason behind it. Like Helen, who does the Love to Sew podcast, she was talking about this, that she had a resolution for a year to make one thing a year, or one thing a week for a year. And she ended up making like 52 garments. And some people kind of were wondering if it was a little excessive. And she thought, well, I'm trying to master this craft of sewing. So every time I make something, I'm getting better. And so it does serve a purpose. Like I'm getting better at sewing. So I think it's just, trying to be mindful, but also like not beating ourselves up about not being perfect. We're all doing the best we can. And if your fabric was printed in China and you bought it at Joann's, go make it and enjoy yourself. Like maybe try every fifth part to buy a sustainable fabric, but we don't have that many options. And so I don't know if there's really any point in beating yourself up about it when globally there's so much worse things going on in the world, in terms of like environmental degradation than somebody making a blouse or a quilt or whatever,
Right.
We're a pretty small part of the problem.
I agree. And Dawn brought up that about you writing for Seamwork. That was one of my questions too. That was a great article that you did, the Good Silk Hunting, I believe it was. How did that come about?
I'm trying to remember because I think I wrote that a little while ago. I think that I think they approached me about writing, or no, did I pitch an article? You know what? I can't remember if Seamwork approached me or if I approached them. That one I might have pitched that as an idea because I think I was interested in this kind of where fabric came from. Yes, I'm sorry. I take it back. I pitched that idea to them. That was when they had first started out and they were looking for contributors. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a piece about where the fabric in our fabric stores comes from.
Yeah. It was a really good, that was a really great article, and it has some really great resource tips. So you guys, if you haven't had a chance to read that article, you should check that article out. It's on Heather's blog, but it's called Good Silk Hunting, and it's a really great article.
Yes, I'm just putting the link in the side in case people want to see it from the the Seamwork site. So Heather, you have gone from a one-woman do-it-all to now working with other people because, well, out of need. Where do you see yourself going in the future? Do you, it seems limitless, really. Do you have any kind of ideas what the future for Closet Case Patterns will be?
Yeah.
Really just more of the same. I'm really happy. I'm really happy how things are going right now. I have Alexis with me part-time. My friend Amy's starting part-time. We have Celine who comes in the office. We have this great group of women I'm working with. I'm not really interested in managing a big team because I really like keeping my fingers in the pie. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we're going to be growing exponentially, but I just really like our pace. And over the last couple of years, I have kind of figured out work-life balance a little bit. So I'm not working these crazy hours. So I have a very nice lifestyle and I would like to maintain it. My partner and I are talking about maybe starting a family. So I'm sure that's going to, change the way that, maybe my production schedule. I mean, last year we had an absolutely insane year in terms of what we released. And this year I'm anticipating just slowing down, just keeping a nice steady ship. So if I have children, it's something that, sustains me and is still exciting, but isn't so demanding that, it's sacrificing my relationship or having a family or whatever. So yeah, I'm just interested in steady course forward. Nothing really too divergent from what we're doing right now.
So not world domination then. So
definitely.
No, I don't know if I have the energy.
Now,
oh goodness.
Dawn, we're at 8:20. You think we should start getting some of their questions before it gets too late, just in case some of you want to come online and ask your questions?
That sounds fabulous. So we have 3 questions. Would anyone like to try asking the question online? If you would, just let us, on camera, just let us know in the comments. And if you're not sure if you can make it on, we could just try. It's no problem. Goodness. So
okay,
no takers today. We got some people shy. You're probably in your pajamas. Yep, Faye, I see you. I see you in your pajamas. Okay, so here's Faye's question. Faye is Linda Faye Lewis from Faye's Sewing Adventure, one of our lovely supporters, and she's an amazing sewist, blogger, and woman. She wants to know, she says, I love all of your patterns. How did you come up with the idea of naming them after people?
I'm trying to think of the moment of that, because the first one I named the Bombshell because it was clearly a bombshell swimsuit. And then when I started thinking about it in terms of a business, I was like, well, how am I going to name patterns? Because generally pattern, if they're not called the 001, I felt at the time most indie pattern companies had a naming convention. So I think at the time, Colette was naming things after pastries and tea. I think they went through a few different things. And because my whole business started because of the sewing community, it just felt like a natural extension to name the patterns after the people that inspired me in it. Wow. So that's how it started. And now I really love that's it makes me really happy whenever it's time to choose our new name for the pattern. And there's no obligation for the people we're naming it after. I just like to, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to make anything. I just like to think, no, it's just a weird small way that I like to say thank you to the community for everything, teaching me to sew, buying our patterns. Yeah. that's about it.
That's so nice. Wow, that's awesome. We have another question that popped up in the question comment box. It's from Andrea. I am curious if you went to college, and I believe she said she did, and if you have a business mentor.
So I did go, well, in Canada, we call it university. So college is university. So I did do, I have a BA, I have an undergraduate degree in women's studies and history. But when I moved to Montreal, there wasn't a lot of room for, there wasn't like, it was like feminist wanted at, there wasn't a lot of like job opportunity. So I was waitressing I moved to Montreal. I think I was waitressing for like 4 or 5 years and bartending. And I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. I really need to figure out what I'm going to do. So I'm really lucky. I live in Quebec, and our college, so there's university and college. So college would basically be like trade school, I guess, would be the the US equivalent. So or vocational studies. So our college in Quebec is free. So we have an interior design and graphic design, industrial design. Those are all considered vocations. So you can if you're a resident of Quebec, you could go to school for free. And I was really lucky because the interior design program in Montreal at my college was like the best and one of the best in the country.
Wow.
So I actually got to go and do another third-year degree without tuition, which was amazing. So I have 2 degrees. I have a university degree and I have a college degree. In terms of a business mentor, I don't really have a formal mentor. I would love one. When I first got started out, I was very involved with a small business. It was like how would I describe it? It's basically like a nonprofit dedicated to helping small businesses get off the ground. So at the time, I had applied for a small business loan so I could do my first print run. And they put me, in order, like as one of the conditions for the business loan, I had to get partnered with a mentor. But he was very sweet. He was quite a bit older than I was. And he had no understanding of like the internet or like e-commerce. And we met every month, and he was a lovely man. We had a great relationship, but he would just be like, how are things going? And I would say, great. And he would be like, that's great. And then we would talk about like tennis or whatever. He didn't, it wasn't like somebody I could go to with a lot of problems. My old boss actually at my interior design firm, a couple times a year we'll go out for lunch, and we work in quite different fields, but she was an amazing boss. She was a really good manager. So I'm actually going to take her out for lunch hopefully this month. But I don't have anybody. I would love to have somebody that I could call every couple weeks and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? But I haven't had that. So I've had to kind of figure it out on my own.
Oh.
Have you ever been that to someone else?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in the city who start small businesses, and so I help when I can. I get a lot of emails of people starting indie pattern companies who have questions. And unfortunately, it's like I only have so much time in the day, so I'll have I kind of have my email that I send with all that information. But yeah, not formally. No, not formally.
Okay. Good question, Andrea.
And we have other questions as well. This one is from Anne. Hey, Anne. Do you plan on coming to the Maritimes, maybe New Brunswick, to do a workshop? Finding good quality jean fabric is not easy. So the second part of our question is, where do you find your fabric for your jeans in Canada?
Well, Anne, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I am not traveling to teach for the foreseeable future. I did like 10 workshops last year, and I got really burned out on traveling. I'm going to London in May for 10 days, and I'm not even really looking forward to it because I've been just traveling so much. But these are champagne problems, and I'm sorry for whining. I'm not. I have to go to London. I'm so tired. I don't want to go. But we will be teaching. I'm hoping to teach a couple workshops a year in our new studio. So maybe you could come travel to take one with us. Or actually starting on Thursday or Wednesday tomorrow, if you're one of our subscribers, I'm doing a denim month. I'm really excited. We source all of our denim from Cone, which is a U.S. mill, and they make, well, up until very recently, they were one of the last denim manufacturers in the United States. They actually just shuttered their last mill in Greensboro, North Carolina. The White Oak mill had been making denim for like 140 years. Wow. They just closed it.
Wow.
And I managed to get my hands. And so every time we've offered denim kits, it's always been from Cone. And I managed to just buy up some of the last yardage available that was manufactured in that mill. And as of tomorrow or Thursday, unless you're on our newsletter, we're going to be offering new denim kits. And then the whole month of February is going to be dedicated to making jeans. So I have some interviews with some really cool jean makers outside of the sewing community. We have some new tutorials. We've got all sorts of stuff happening. So if you'd like to buy denim from us, well, it'll be for sale, and we are shipping within Canada. So shipping is reasonable.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, very cool. And we have another question from Lisa G. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. And her question is, where can we find your class schedule?
So my teaching on our website, on the menu at the top, there's a thing that says classes, I think, and there's one for in person or online. So if you guys want to learn how to make jeans with me, and I'm not traveling to you, and you don't want to come to Montreal to take a class, we have the swimsuit class for Sophie's swimsuit, and then we also have the jean making class, which is like 4.5 hours of me talking, coaching you through making jeans. And it's the next best thing to having me in person. But yeah, under that sewing classes, you can see my teaching schedule. So the only one that I have on the books for 2018 is that course in England. And I think they had 1 or 2 spots left. So if anybody's in the UK and you want to take a class, you might be able to still get into the class. And we have a link to the studio.
Yeah, I agree with Denise in the comments. She just noticed those Sasha trousers. I just saw those too. Those are some beautiful. Is that a new pattern?
Yeah, so that's our newest pattern. It came out in November, I think. So yeah, it's like a classic flat front stretch trouser.
I like those. The fit.
Yeah, and the fit, it's the same block we use for ginger. So if you've made ginger before, it's going to be very similar in terms of fit or any adjustments you need to make. Hopefully it feels very consistent.
Yeah, I like
Oh, thank you, Denise. Great.
Yeah.
I love the flat front trousers.
And look at the fit on the back. Yeah, I like those trousers. Those are really nice. I think Denise did review them, Alethea. I just saw your question. I think I saw. Wait a minute. I think that was where I first saw them. I'm not sure. Denise, maybe you can answer for us. But oh my gosh, you're just knocking them out of the park, Heather. Oh, and now that I know that your patterns, this is the second one I tried, and I got a perfect fit the first time. I did not muslin this. I didn't. I just went for it, and thank goodness. Thank goodness.
You know, I mean that pattern. I think unless you've got really big ladies, you probably don't need to worry about muslining too much. I think for some people, like if you have broad shoulders, it does need it fits close. It's kind of designed to fit a little bit slimmer through the shoulders. So if you have wide shoulders, it might be worth at least doing a quick muslin of the upper half just to make sure it fits. But it's meant to, be have a lot of ease. So you shouldn't have to worry about too many fitting issues.
Yeah, and because I'm in Florida and I really like it. I didn't do, even though I saw that you have a lining kit, or not lining kit, but I think you did do an extension. I didn't do the lining, but the way this is put together, it looks so nice on the inside anyway. And this is a heavy stretch kind of denim that I got from Mood, so it's perfect for Florida's cooler weather.
I drafted it without a lining because I looked at ready to wear jackets, and I had like an old army jacket that was unlined, and I liked how lightweight it was and it was easy to put on. And so we did spend a lot of time thinking about the finishes on the inside so that it would look beautiful on the inside. But then we had so many people asking for a lining. I was like, fine, we'll do a lining. So we ended up releasing the lining for it. So yeah, you could do it fully lined as well.
Yeah, I really liked it. And my next one, I probably will put the lining in it, but this one's perfect. I've already worn it quite a few times. Actually, it needs to go in the wash now, but so thank you so much for your great work. You guys are, you're just killing it at Closet Case Patterns, not Closet Files.
It gets confusing because people who've been following us since the beginning, it's like that it's just the mental block, but it didn't make sense to have the blog called Closet Case Files and then have the pattern line called Closet Case Patterns. So we're just Closet Case Patterns anymore. So
I wrote it wrong like 3 times setting this thing up. In the title, it was files. Here it was files. So I had to keep checking it because I've definitely been following your blog for a while. So yeah, it just got stuck in my head. But yes, patterns. But
I know
yes.
it's hard. It would have almost been better just to totally change our name, but I couldn't bear to deal with that kind of identity change. So
no, I think we like closet case patterns.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're very close to the end of the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know Myra will have something to say as well. Before we start talking about community events, Heather, thank you so much for fitting us in your super busy schedule. We've been really excited to have you on for quite a long time, just because, yeah, you are so interesting and amazing, and your patterns are so fabulous. So keep up with that.
Thanks, ladies.
Gumption. And keep coming up with awesome, stylish patterns. And Myra, come on, you got to gush a little. Come on.
Well, I love you and your patterns. It's just been amazing. It's just really, truly been amazing this hour, being able to share with you how wonderful I think your patterns. I know I've only purchased 2, about to purchase 3, because I just saw another one that I really, really like. And that's only because I need to go to your pattern,
sorry, one sec. Babe, it's okay. I'm here. I'm still on the call.
And real quick, I just need to go back and look through the rest of your patterns to see what else I'm missing. That's what I was going to say, but it's an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, when you have a few more patterns out, and maybe another one just goes crazy berserk, we can get you back on if you have time for our little show here. So
yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
And as we always say to anybody in the sewing community, if you release a new pattern, you have something new and exciting going on, Heather or anyone else out there, let us know, because it's perfect for us to mention in the community end of our program. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're just going to talk about some of the things that are going on, like the Sewing Makes You Like Yourself challenge. I always want to mix up those letters. That's one of the hashtags going around. There's some amazing heartfelt videos out there on YouTube. You should watch them. And it is true. Sometimes you put something on that you've made and you feel like $1 million. It doesn't matter if anyone can see you. And I'm sure everyone who's wore a bombshell or a ginger jean knows this feeling. They just make you feel amazing. So yeah, definitely check out that hashtag. And you, Myra, do you have things that are on your radar?
Yes, we also have the hashtag Day and Night Dress Challenge. That is a wonderful one. I'm actually in that challenge. There are featured bloggers and vloggers. Dawn and I are one of the featured bloggers and vloggers. We're going to do our reveals the week of February 22nd through the 28th. But anyone is welcome to join that. It's the Instagram hashtag Day and Night Dress Challenge. All you have to do is just go ahead and make your 2 dresses, one for day with coffee or another one for cocktails at night, and then post it on Instagram using that hashtag Day and Night Dress Challenge. And you have until, I believe it's March 15th, isn't it? March.
Yeah, all the details are on Elizabeth Farr's website. Elizabeth made this. She was our So You Think You Can Sew champion this year. Heather, we have a little kind of sewing competition we do at the end of each year, and people go head to head sewing with mystery things we send them in the mail. And Elizabeth was the winner this year, so we are a huge fan of Elizabeth. She is a master fabric manipulator.
Yes,
so yeah, so she's the one sponsoring that, so that's very exciting. And I finally, Myra, I have to tell you, finally did my New Year's resolution video.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Myra tagged me in the New Year's resolution tag, but I had a little hiccup at the beginning of the year that kind of knocked my world for 6. So I finally got things straightened up, and I just filmed it today, so it'll be out soon. But that's another one. I was late. You can be late. If you want to do that hashtag, no one needs to tag you. Just go for it. Talk about your resolutions if you want to. And before we go, I'll also like to mention that next week we have Tree from Stitchless TV. Check her out on YouTube. She does a lot of refashioning. She's a very lovely lady. Then we have Johanna Lundstrom, remember from The Last Stitch?
Yeah.
She just released a book on sewing with knits. She is amazing and a lovely woman. It's the second time we've had her on the show. I practically begged her to come on. She is amazing. And then we have Vanessa from the Crafty Gemini.
Yeah.
And then the ladies from Sewing Makes You Love Yourself are coming on. And we're having a community show where people will come on and show off the things they made for that challenge.
That is correct. And don't forget to go over to that So Much Talent Facebook group. Their monthly challenge is the Stash Busting Challenge. And I think this is the last week, and the last week is sleepwear, I believe. And if I'm incorrect, Alethea, you can let me know. But that's wrapping up this week. So looking forward to all those beautiful things that everybody's making over there. So
Heather, do you have, oh, sorry, I was gonna, just in case she had anything on her agenda.
There he is.
Oh, that was lovely. Nice to meet you.
yes.
Do you have anything on your radar besides the fabulous young man that just poked his head in the screen? In the Zoom community, is there anything that you're looking at?
Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I guess the biggest thing going on right now is what I mentioned. We have our denim month starting on Thursday, and I think I've been kind of planning it for the last 6 months. There's lots of really cool content I have coming your way. And we've got our new Cone Mills kits launching. And if you haven't sewn with Cone Mills denim before, it is absolutely the best. It does not stretch out. It does not bag out. So, you know, if you buy cheap jeans, you know, you wear them after a day and they get all stretched out. So Cone Mills doesn't do that the best. And it's might be the last made in America cone denim you're going to be able to get your hands on. So that's basically what's going on with us.
And that'll be on your blog.
Go to your website and subscribe right now.
Yeah, so if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll be the first to know, which is sometimes it's a good idea because we've had those kits sell out before I've made a public announcement. Or you can just take your chances and check in with the blog when everything goes live.
Okay. Okay.
Great. That's awesome to know.
Okay.
So I think we'll all go off and have our drinks. And we want to remind you to, if you're watching this on the replay, to subscribe to us on YouTube, because then you won't miss one of the replays. Sorry, Myra, it's like 4 times tonight we interrupted each other.
I know. Well, that's it, everyone. We have to let Miss Heather go because we've been blessed to have her on here, so we don't want to waste her time. So I want to say to you all, thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you all right back here next week, Tuesday at 7:30 for that Sewing Blab. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.